Looking forward to having this conversation with you. I was just saying, we're both a part of the Metaverse Minds on WhatsApp, and I'm seeing all the positive chatter. Everybody's praising you and all this cool things that are going on. So I'm not going to fill the space. Why don't you introduce yourself, what your team's working on, and we'll dive into a fun conversation for a moment.
Yeah, it's really good to be here, Ian, and thanks for taking the time. I'm Arif. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alethea AI. Alethea AI, what we're doing is we're building an intelligent, open metaverse that is filled with interactive and intelligent NFTs. And why NFTs? Because they represent the perfect metaverse Legos in that they provide owners, users, a property rights layer to actually own the asset, own the intelligence. And why intelligent and interactive? It's because that creates a level of engagement in a metaverse that really drives a lot of value for the entire ecosystem and community. So we're building an intelligent metaverse, and in this metaverse, there are going to be millions or billions of these iNFTs, a standard we are pioneering and invented some time back.
So for intelligent NFTs, is this exclusively or partly tied to GPT-3 and the OpenAI protocol? Are you even allowed to talk about that publicly? So maybe you could give me insight in terms of what we could talk about, and if that is the case or isn't the case, would that remain kind of the standard, or does it develop into other options? Because there's a lot of excitement around GPT-3, and the thought of it coming into the NFT space is obviously a great attractor for people that are outside.
No, it's a great question. We started working with folks at OpenAI, some of the best AI talent and research engineers in the world, almost about, let's see, a year and a half ago now, when they first released their GPT-3 private beta, and very restrictive, very exclusive, very private community, just because of the risks of harm and spam and hate speech. So they wanted it to be a very closed, private environment, and they started opening it up slowly. So we've been deeply impressed by them, by the algorithms. The foundational principle is there's a paper called Language Learners Are Few Short Language Models Are Few Short Learners. And what it does is that it explains very basically, the central idea is that you don't need that much data anymore to create meaningful, tangible output that might sound like you and me, right? So you can create, you don't need to train the AI to have millions of specific knowledge points for it to sound like, let's say, Naval's Twitter feed. You don't need to feed it like thousands of papers or books that Naval may have written. You can actually have that AI learn from a few quotes and then start to sound like Naval, right? So like that's like one way to think about it, that we have the ability to infer output and meaning is becoming easier. Now, OpenAI is absolutely fantastic, and we had an opportunity to work with them. We're still working with them as partners. We have now, however, developed our own in-house language model. And the reason we did this was foundationally oriented around the principles of decentralization, but also around permissionlessness, which is we want people to be able to bring their cool characters to life, but we want them to decide what characters should be banned or not. We don't want to be the centralized intermediary that makes that decision. And so the concern here from our standpoint is that we want people's imaginations to be brought to life. We want them to be owners of the decisions as to what characters can and cannot be brought to life. And we don't want micro approvals on each character use case, right? So we want that capability to be given to the people and the power given to the people. In OpenAI's case, they have legitimate reason to be very sensitive about people misusing it for hate speech. In our case, we foundationally believe that the community and DAO, a decentralized model, will serve us well.
I feel like people would just be overwhelmed with questions and just wanting you to give more insight. So maybe instead of me asking more questions, if people come up to you and they're established in the NFT space, they're builders, they're investors, they're deep in the space, and they say, okay, how do I get involved with iNFTs? What's the first step for an established enthusiast, collector, investor, somebody that's already a speaker, a sponsor at the event? They find out about it and they go, okay, what's step one? Like, what's the 101? How do I spend time with you guys, be a part of this with you, separate as a peer? Where is a starting point?
Yeah, it's a the starting point is curiosity, which is already there, right? So like if they're there in the space that's already present, but from a logistical standpoint, essentially we have these things called pods. So if you go to our Gitbook, or if you go to Alethea.ai, you'll see a pod, which is basically like a soul. What this pod is, it allows you to pair any NFT, any static JPEG image out there. You pair it with a pod, and you can then bring that static JPEG image to life. You can animate it and you can gift it a personality. As long as it's synced at the smart contract level and fused, it will be an interactive, intelligent NFT. So that pod is sort of the lock and key. It's the key to the Alethea AI protocol, which we've built, which allows anybody to take any existing asset they have and to upgrade it. The other thing that they can do is if they don't want to upgrade an existing asset, they just want to have a conversation with what iNFTs are, they can go to Alethea AI, and there's a bunch of iNFTs ready to talk, educate, entertain, and engage. There's a CryptoPunk, there's a Bored Ape that has been brought to life. There is Tesla, there is a Shakespeare, there's Isaac Newton. You can create video content with them. There's an entire collection called The Revenants, which we launched a couple of weeks ago on OpenSea, which has done really well, and which has some really amazing collectors that are bringing these revenants to life even further and pushing the boundaries. So starting point, always curiosity. But if you want to get deeply involved in the technical, you have to have a pod that can pair with your specific JPEG image and it can be brought to life.
Wow. I think you're going to get overwhelmed with people interested when you're at NFT NYC. So let's transition as we kind of come to a close, because short is shareable. NFT 2024. I say that to you. What positive things are you hoping for in the next 2 or 3 years with iNFTs? What are you projecting? What are you driving toward?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we are looking at iNFTs as a standard is we foundationally see JPEGs as a powerful version 1 iteration, right? And version 2, version 3, version 4 are going to be profoundly more sophisticated. Don't get me wrong, JPEGs are still going to be valuable because of the historical provenance. But consumers, if you look at the way we've been conditioned, none of us, maybe I do sometimes from time to time, you flip through a picture book to like look at cartoons moving, right? Like we did that as kids. But now, if you have a cinematic experience possible, if you have a movie, if you have Netflix, it's unlikely that you're going to flip through a picture book. We have an intrinsic, innate desire for more interactivity, more engagement, more real time, more live. And that sort of connection is going to enable like a huge design space to open up. NFTs are not just going to be JPEG images that sit in our wallet. They're going to be interactive media experiences where we will also build social relationships and bonds with them. And this is where it starts to get really interesting and somewhat science fictional, right? But like I see that possibility emerging, because of the moment you embed AI into NFTs and you create a new medium like the iNFT, you allow people to bring their imaginations to life and have that asset actually be something that can be passed down or interacted with as people build iNFTs. So we're very excited about that future becoming possible. And I see a metaverse of millions or billions of iNFTs being brought to life, and the intelligence becoming the greatest rarity trait.
You have just brought my imagination to life. So thank you for being a life-giving friend, coming in, having a conversation with me. I think folks that tune into this live or the archive will certainly enjoy it. And if you are watching us, thank you for your attention. If you don't know me, I'm Ian Utilli, one of the co-producers at NFT NYC. I get the incredible privilege of hanging out with people like you, Arif, and we're very, very thankful that you're part of our event. Would not be the same without you. And I personally, I'm leaning into iNFTs and looking forward to building this future with you. So thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.